What is going on, my homies? I got big news. I designed a bait and I'm pretty proud of it, and it's been a process, and that's what's gonna be really cool. I'm gonna show you kind of like the steps we went through in the process, how it started like caveman design, how it like is gonna end up production design. And there's a lot of reasons for the way this thing was kind of set up and put together. So first I'm gonna throw a rewind at you. Back in like January, February of 2024, me and my buddy Quentin, Waters Wonder Media, I had to go swimming in the cold pool. He got to film it. But basically, we shot underwater footage.
Freaking freezing, bro.
This sucks. Oh.
Of jigs and how they behave when you do the old minnow twitch, dude. You put like a fluke style bait, a minnow style bait on it and go ch-ch-ch. We used the owner range roller. We used a Ned, which is what we're gonna kind of talk about. We used a variety of different jigs to see how they behave, a standard ball head, and it was an eye-opening experience. So that led to me saying, hey, I want a jig that does like everything, but it doesn't exist. So how do I make it happen? So I got with Val at Gambler and I'm like, bro, I got some concepts. I don't know if it's perfect, but it'll be kind of perfect for a certain time of year, a certain sort of like type of fish and the way they're set up. So it's a minnow style jig, and I'm gonna show it to you right off the bat. I'm gonna show you the old one actually. So the first step in the prototyping like process, I was like, I wanna achieve two things. I want a jig that does that rocking side to side action, but I also want it to have like Ned potential. I want it to kind of like have some various features, actually one big feature that's just like a Ned, and that's that flat style head like that. And there's two different reasons. So in my opinion, there's kind of two ways to fish these forward-facing fish. One is, you know, the old jig and minnow, the rocking back and forth. You go, stay above their heads, you draw them up, and then you close the deal that way. Well, the second one, especially in some of these Bassmaster Open tournaments, my buddy has a pro on the Opens who fishes for 44 tackle, and now he's on the Elite Series actually. And one of his arts is actually dropping a big football jig to these fish. So like pitching it out, letting it go all the way to the bottom. Well, you can't really do that really well with a ball head. You can, but it doesn't stand up. It doesn't have action on the bottom. I wanted to fuse those two concepts. I wanted to bring together the sort of minnow dangling that everybody's doing, but I think this dropping technique where you drop that bait to the bottom also has a play at various times of the year. So I wanted a jig that we could use for both different situations. So this is the first prototype, and it's big and bulky, and I'll tell you something about designing jigs. When you run a prototype, the non-production is always gonna be like 10% bigger than what you actually end up with. So it is big and bulky. This is a 1/4 ounce jig. But the features I was looking for on this first round was that flat head, and then I wanted like a rock style feature, kind of like what you find on the range roller, but a little bit different V to cause that rocking action. The other aspect to this is the flat head also complements that sort of rocking action. Almost like you imagine like a scrounger, you know, with that big bill. That flat head is gonna slow down the bait, and it's also gonna cause friction against the water as the water hits it, causing the bait to kind of shake, you know, against that pressure. So the first version was too bulky. The hook was too big. I wanted a smaller hook, but with that same stoutness, and I wanted more of a fin feature going up to the eye. So that's where we get to the second kind of run. And this is what's gonna be the final version. It's gonna be a little bit smaller than this, but it's this beautiful guy right here. So this is a 1/0 hook. It's a super stout hook. I've actually tested this hook on 8 to 9, even a 10.5 pound fish down here in Florida, and it held up. It was super stout. It's tiny, it pins them though. The other feature that we kind of designed on this guy is that sort of fin, I don't even know how you describe it. I think the best word is like a fin to cause that rocking action that rolls into the actual line tie right there. And then I wanted that flat sort of, I don't know, teacup or ovalesque kind of flat head on it. And it, once again, to do those two things. One, I wanted it flat so that, say I got a fish following or something like that, I can stop it immediately and it'll go straight down, and then it's gonna stop. And granted, I'm a realist, dude. It's not always gonna stop, like pointing straight up, but for the most part, that jig, when you pop it a few times, is gonna land and stand up and really just kind of dance at that fish. That tail's gonna wave, it's gonna do kind of a weird rock as it goes down, and then it's gonna stand that fish will follow it to the bottom. You shake the bait a couple times and hopefully close the deal. And then that fin and that front also give that sort of rocking action that absolutely everybody's looking for, that sort of back and forth wobbling kind of side to side gait. So that's the final concept. We're gonna do two different versions. We're gonna do an unpainted one, just that standard that I showed you, simple, unpainted, cheaper, you know, I like that. But then we're also going to do a little higher end version. This is the prototype of it. It's not finished, so I'm showing you kind of stuff before it's all completely done. But there's an eye on there. We're going to put a giant 3D eye, and then it's actually going to be painted with a two-tone, kind of like an albino shad, something actually a lot like this Gambler Minnow, dude. Kind of like a little bit of blue in there with a little bit of glitter, powder coated, super durable, and it's gonna have that kind of like a white iridescent reflective. And as long as I got this thing, let me show you how this thing rigs out. So it's super simple. There's a wire form keeper on there. I always prefer a screw lock keeper, but I wanted to make sure that everybody could use this thing. I know a lot of you guys use elastic plastics, so like you don't have to throw Gambler stuff on this. You can throw whatever minnow you want, and that little keeper, being the wire form keeper, allows you to use elastic plastics, whatever kind of plastic you want. But it's a super simple rigging. All you're gonna do is go into that minnow right there, pop it through. I probably should have measured beforehand, but I've gotten halfway decent at this. And then you're gonna slide that thing on and run it up the shank and straighten it out. And that's gonna be your product. It looks a little different than a lot of the standard jigs are out there, but that's what fishing's about, dude. It's about presenting something different. And I think the action on this, the side to side wobble is a little less aggressive than what you find on the owner range roller and on some of those other modified jigs. I wanted something that was a little tighter, maybe a little more geared for winter or clear water, finesse style fish. The look, it really complements the action. And I'm not too worried about how this thing is gonna look. I want it to do specific things in the water. So my goal was really to have it behave in certain ways, the laying flat on the bottom when it stands up, the rocking back and forth, but with a tighter action. So the look of it's a little bit different, but it reminds me a lot of kind of like what you call like a scrounger jig, which doesn't even exist. But because of that flat head and then that little fin, you get that rocking back and forth action. It's super cool jig. I've caught some giant fish on the prototype. It has a really cool action to it. It does multiple things, and I think that's the key, is finding versatility and finding something that does the drop as well as the minnow shaking kind of thing. And it's gonna be available shortly, dude. I helped to design it. If it blows up, that's always the key. We're actually gonna start doing some bigger hooks as well. I know a lot of you guys are interested in like Sakamata shad, the fish arrow, you know, Zoom just came out with that modified fluke with the fins, but they're bigger baits, right? They come in like 6, 7, 8 inch. They're giant, right? So they require like a 4-aught or 5-aught hook. So if this thing works, just like any, you know, bait, if you guys gravitate towards it and are interested in it, we're going to expand it into a bigger hook selection so that you can accommodate some of those bigger fluke style baits versus the minnow style baits on the jig. But it's pretty cool. It's been a process for like 6 to 8 months, kind of tweaking it, making sure the action was right. It's a little more subtle than some of your aggressive kind of like rollerball style jigs, but it's pretty badass, dude. I think it's pretty cool. It does not have a name yet. I don't know what the name's gonna be. If I know the name, once I get this video out, I will let you know, but check it out. I helped to design it and really put it together based upon like some pool tests, based upon playing around with this whole like minnow as well as dropping technique and thinking about how much I like fishing like a Ned, especially for those fish, those dragging fish that are looking for that bait kind of standing and rocking on the bottom. It fuses all those things together and allows you to do it with just one jig. So check this thing out, the No Name Jig, designed by Mikey Balls.